You ever meet someone who could walk into a room and make every light burn a little brighter, while somehow making you feel smaller, dimmer, like your glow wasn't even real? That was my sister, Claire, the golden one, the one who never had to try. And me? I was just Sophie, the quiet one, the one who followed behind, clapping the loudest while nobody noticed I was even there. Growing up, everything about Claire screamed, "Look at me." She had that laugh that carried across the street, that face people remembered, and the kind of confidence you can't fake. I used to think it was magic, how she could pull people in so easily. Teachers loved her, boys tripped over themselves around her, and Mom would always say, "Sophie, you could learn a thing or two from your sister." I tried. God, I tried. But no matter what I did, it never felt like enough. Even in photos, she was the one in focus, and I was the blur standing beside her. Things started to change after Dad passed away. We were both teenagers, and grief hit us in different ways. Claire threw herself into theater. Every school play, every audition, every chance to stand under those bright stage lights. And I found comfort in the shadows, behind the curtains, helping with costumes, music, stage design, anything that didn't require me to be seen. But one night, something shifted. I still remember it so clearly. The smell of dust and old velvet in the auditorium. The echo of Claire's voice during rehearsal. She was practicing her lines, and she sounded different. Not just confident, possessed. There was this edge to her tone, like she wasn't just acting anymore. Like something else had taken hold of her. When I mentioned it later, she just laughed. "You're imagining things, Soph," she said, brushing her hair back with that same careless grace. But her eyes lingered on me for a second too long. There was something cold in them, something that made my stomach twist. After that, strange things began to happen. Little things at first, mirrors cracking, music equipment going missing, people whispering that Claire's performances felt too real. She was getting standing ovations now, even from people who used to ignore her. Everyone said she had changed, but they meant it as a compliment. I knew better. I'd seen the change up close. Late one night, after rehearsal, I caught her in the dressing room. She was standing in front of the mirror, whispering something under her breath. The room was empty, except for her reflection. Only, her reflection wasn't moving the same way she was. It was smiling when she wasn't. When she saw me watching, she slammed the mirror shut and said, "Don't ever sneak up on me again." Her voice didn't sound like hers anymore. That was the night I realized I wasn't living in her shadow. I was standing at the edge of something darker, something that wanted the spotlight even more than she did. And soon, I'd find out what it really was. After that night in the dressing room, things between Claire and me started to feel off. We'd always had our differences, sure, but this was different. She was distant, sharp around the edges, and whenever I tried to talk to her, she'd either brush me off or stare through me like I wasn't really there. Mom said it was just stress. "She's under a lot of pressure," she'd tell me while folding laundry or chopping vegetables, her tone always carrying that familiar mix of pride and worry. This next performance could be her big break. But I couldn't shake what I'd seen in that mirror. Claire had always been dramatic, but lately her mood swung like a pendulum. One minute she was glowing, laughing, talking about the future, about how the local theater director had promised to introduce her to someone in the city. The next, she was silent, withdrawn, staring at her reflection as if she didn't recognize herself. Sometimes I'd catch her whispering again, always to the mirror, always alone. It was around that time our mother started keeping the house darker at night. Said it helped her sleep better. But I think she was just tired of the noise, of Claire's endless rehearsing, the thud of her footsteps pacing across her room long after midnight. And then there was the day Claire fainted. It was during dress rehearsal for The Glass Queen, her biggest role yet. Everyone said she'd been perfect, until she wasn't. One moment she was delivering her monologue, voice trembling with emotion, and the next she collapsed mid-sentence, like her body just gave out. When I ran to her side, her eyes were open, but they weren't focused on me. They were locked on something behind me, something I couldn't see. She whispered a single word before losing consciousness. "Stay." After that, she started spending more time at the theater than at home. Said it helped her connect with the role. I'd visit sometimes, bringing her food or extra clothes, but each time I went, the air inside that old building felt heavier. The walls seemed to hum with something I couldn't name. One evening, while she was rehearsing alone, I found her journal sitting open on a makeup table. It wasn't like Claire to write much. She'd never been the diary type. But the pages were full, covered in looping handwriting that didn't look entirely like hers. The last line on the page sent a chill through me. She's almost ready to take the stage. I just have to let her in. When I asked Claire about it later, she smiled. A soft, eerie smile that didn't reach her eyes. You wouldn't understand, she said. Some things aren't meant to be shared. And that was the first time I realized I might not be watching my sister chase a dream anymore. I might be watching her become something else entirely. It was about a week before opening night when things really started to unravel. Claire had practically moved into the theater by then. Mom kept saying, she's just dedicated. But dedication doesn't explain why she stopped answering her phone or why the few times she came home, she acted like she didn't recognize our own house. She'd walk through the hallway like a stranger, touching the pictures on the wall, staring at them too long, asking odd questions like, do you ever feel like the walls are watching? She was pale, thinner, her movements jerky like she was trying to remember how to use her body. And her voice, it wasn't hers anymore. Sometimes it came out in whispers, sometimes deeper, like someone else was speaking through her. I tried to tell Mom, but she just sighed and said I was jealous. Jealous of her success, her light, her talent. I didn't even bother arguing. I knew what I'd seen. The night before the final rehearsal, I decided to go to the theater after hours. I told myself it was to check on her, but the truth is, I needed proof that something wasn't right. The building was empty when I slipped inside, or at least it should have been. The stage lights flickered dimly, casting long shadows across the worn-out seats. I could hear faint humming, Claire's voice, or what sounded like it. When I peeked from behind the curtain, she was standing center stage, barefoot, wearing the costume for the Glass Queen. Her hands were trembling as she stared into the mirror propped up against the wall. I thought she was rehearsing until she said something that froze me in place. She's almost here, she whispered, smiling. She says you're late. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. The mirror started to ripple, like it was made of water, and for a split second, I saw something move inside it. A woman's silhouette, tall and elegant, but wrong somehow. Her reflection moved when Claire didn't. I must have gasped, because Claire's head snapped around. Her eyes locked on mine, and the look she gave me wasn't my sister's. You shouldn't be here, Sophie, she said softly, voice trembling with anger, or fear, I couldn't tell which. She doesn't like to be watched. And then, as I took a step back, the mirror cracked from top to bottom with a sound like bone breaking. That was the moment I realized, whatever was inside that mirror didn't just want Claire. It wanted both of us. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that mirror, rippling like water, that shadowed figure standing just behind Claire. I kept telling myself it had to be exhaustion or stage lights playing tricks on my mind, but deep down I knew the truth. Something inside that theater wasn't normal. 2 days before opening night, I went back. I told myself I'd confront her, make her leave, even if it meant dragging her home. The place was buzzing with life. Costume racks everywhere, crew rushing about, laughter echoing down the halls, but none of it felt real. It felt staged, like everyone was part of a play they didn't realize they were in. Claire was in the dressing room, sitting in front of the cracked mirror. Her makeup was flawless, her expression unreadable. You shouldn't be here, she said, without turning around. Her voice was soft but cold. I came to help, I said. You haven't been home in days. Mom's worried. She smiled faintly. I'm fine, Sophie. I'm better than I've ever been. When she finally looked at me, I froze. Her eyes looked hollow, like something had drained the warmth from them. She stood slowly, her reflection lagging behind, still seated for a heartbeat before catching up. What's happening to you? I asked. She tilted her head, studying me. You wouldn't understand. You were always so afraid of being seen. But she isn't. She sees everything. Before I could answer, the lights in the room flickered, and the air turned icy. The reflection of the dressing room began to darken, as though ink were seeping through the glass. A faint whisper came from the mirror. I couldn't make out the words, but it was soft, coaxing, and familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. Then I realized what it was whispering. My name. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair. Claire didn't react. She just watched me, her lips moving soundlessly with the whisper. For a second, both her and her reflection smiled in perfect sync. That night, I told Mom everything. I told her about the mirror, the voice, the woman I'd seen inside it. But Mom's face went pale in a way I didn't expect. She didn't look surprised. She looked terrified. "Sophie," she said quietly, gripping my hand. "You don't remember your father's last play, do you? The one he wrote before he died." I shook my head. "It was called The Glass Queen. He wrote it for her. For Claire." Something in her voice cracked. "But he never finished it. He said the story was cursed. That the woman in it, she wasn't fiction." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "What do you mean?" I whispered. Mom hesitated, her eyes darting toward the window where the night pressed in like ink. "The Glass Queen was real, Sophie. And she always returns for her leading lady." And as thunder rolled outside, I realized Claire wasn't rehearsing anymore. She was becoming her. The night before the premiere, Claire disappeared. They found her costume in the dressing room, torn, soaked as if it had been pulled from water, but no sign of her. The police searched the entire theater, every hallway, every hidden crawl space beneath the stage. Nothing. When I walked in, the cracked mirror was gone. In its place stood a brand new one, larger, spotless, gleaming like it had been waiting. As I stared into it, my heart stopped. Claire's reflection was there, clear as day, standing right behind me, smiling that same eerie smile. But when I turned around, the room was empty. I reached out, trembling, fingertips brushing the cold surface. The glass rippled again. A voice whispered from inside, soft and desperate. "Sophie, help me." She said there has to be two. The lights flickered. My reflection tilted its head in the opposite direction. And for the first time, I realized she hadn't taken Claire's place. She was trying to take mine. The theater was locked that night, but locks didn't matter anymore. I broke in through a side door, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear myself think. The air was cold and heavy, like the building itself was holding its breath. The stage was lit, even though no one was there. The mirror stood center stage, taller than before, its surface glowing faintly, like moonlight caught in glass. And in it, I saw her, Claire. She looked pale, drenched, eyes hollow and pleading. "Sophie," she whispered, pressing her palm to the other side. "She won't let me out unless someone takes my place." I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "No, no, we'll find another way." Her reflection flickered. Behind her, that shadowed figure appeared again. The Glass Queen, tall, elegant, face veiled in shimmering cracks of light. Her voice seeped through the glass like silk soaked in poison. "She wanted to be seen," the Queen whispered. "You wanted to be known. Both of you looked into me. And now, one must remain." Claire's hand pounded on the glass, desperate. "Please, Sophie, don't let her." The mirror began to pull, dragging the air itself toward it. Costumes, papers, broken lights all flew across the stage. I grabbed Claire's hand through the surface. It felt real, solid, freezing cold, and pulled with everything I had. The Queen's reflection leaned closer, her cracked smile stretching. "Choose," she hissed. Claire's grip weakened. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I wanted the spotlight so badly. I didn't know it came with her." Something in me snapped. I yanked harder, screaming her name. The mirror shattered into 1,000 shards, glass slicing through the air. Everything went white. When I opened my eyes, the stage was quiet. The mirror was gone. Claire was lying beside me, breathing, alive. I helped her up, sobbing with relief. "It's over," I whispered. But then she looked at me and smiled that same cold, perfect smile. "Sophie," she said softly, "thank you for setting me free." And in the reflection of a nearby shard of glass, it wasn't Claire's face staring back at me. It was mine, smiling when I wasn't. After that night, everything changed again, but not in the way I hoped. Claire was back home, safe, smiling, alive. At least, that's what everyone else believed. Mom called it a miracle. The doctors said it was exhaustion. The police filed the whole thing away as a stress-induced breakdown. But I knew better. Claire moved through our house like she owned the air itself. Her movements were slower now, deliberate, graceful in a way that didn't feel human. She spoke softly, but every word carried weight, like she was testing the sound of her own voice. And her reflection never quite matched. Sometimes I'd catch her standing by the mirror in the hallway, whispering to it, fingers tracing the edges like she missed what was on the other side. When I'd ask what she was doing, she'd just smile and say, "Practicing." Mom didn't notice the difference. She was just happy to have her daughter back. But late at night, I'd wake to hear footsteps on the floorboards, pacing from one mirror to another. It was like she was checking them, making sure they were still there. I thought about what the queen had said. You both looked into me. One must remain. Had I really pulled Claire out? Or had I pulled something else through? A week later, Claire was invited to perform again. Her comeback performance. The entire town showed up, proud and curious. I sat in the front row, hands clasped so tight my knuckles turned white. When the curtain rose, she stepped into the spotlight. She was breathtaking, radiant, commanding, perfect. The audience was silent, completely spellbound. But as I watched her move, every step precise, every glance rehearsed, I realized something chilling. She wasn't performing a script. She was reliving it. And then her eyes found me. For a moment, it felt like time stopped. Her smile faltered, just slightly, and I saw something flicker behind her expression. A glimpse of fear, of the real Claire, trapped somewhere deep behind that perfect facade, pounding to get out. After the show, people surrounded her, praising her brilliance. Cameras flashed. Laughter filled the air. She soaked it all in, that same eerie grace radiating off her. When she finally reached me, she leaned close and whispered, "The spotlight suits you too, Sophie. You just haven't learned how to stand in it yet." That night, when I got home, I caught my own reflection lingering too long in the mirror. It smiled first. I smashed it before it could move again. Now I cover every mirror in the house. Mom thinks I'm being dramatic, but I can still feel her presence. In the shimmer of glass, in the flicker of light. The queen never leaves completely. She just waits for someone to look long enough. And sometimes, late at night, I hear Claire's voice through the walls, soft, distant, and broken. "Sophie, please, don't let her find you.